Look at all them turkeys. That's the whole dang herd of turkeys.
This afternoon, I was just pulling on my boots to go on a little bit of an exploratory hike with you guys when I saw a ton of turkeys move in. While I was getting the horses ready to come down, my husband sent me little pictures of all the turkeys, and he kept telling me there was like 50 to 100 turkeys, and I thought he was greatly exaggerating, but it looks like there are a ton of these little birds out here. With all of the trees and ample food to eat, it's no wonder there are a bunch of these birds moving through every day.
Okay, boys. Gussie.
Boy. Boy, Gussie. Boy. Since I didn't finish showing you guys around the other day, today I'm going to do some exploring in one of the areas that I'm going to put the first pasture up for the horses.
Gus. Boy.
These horses are used to being turned out every evening, so being stuck in a dry lot for the last week has been a little bit annoying to them. While it's plenty big enough for all of these horses, it would be nice to let them get out and stretch their legs a little bit. The area that we are going to be exploring today is one that I have not shown you guys yet. It is right next to the dry lot, and it's one of the little pastures that I'm planning to do some rotation grazing with these horses. While these horses were up in Montana, they basically got straight alfalfa all the time. I had been mixing in some grass hay, but down here I bought a bunch of orchard grass for them and some alfalfa. They've gotten a little bit picky about their hay, and if there's any bits of alfalfa, they will not eat the grass.
Hey, Whip. Boy.
Just to remind you guys a little bit about my plans, which I think are still going to be in place. I want to put another dry lot behind this one in this little triangle area. It would be really nice if I could get a track system built so I could open the dry lots, let the horses out. They can go through a little alley and then out into different pastures. I'm definitely still in the planning stages. There are a lot of little saplings that are growing into the pasture space. I'm also still trying to figure out what a lot of the trees are that are around here. I want to make sure that the horses don't get turned out with poisonous trees. I wasn't sure about this one, so I had to look it up, and it is hawthorn. These bushes are generally non-toxic to horses unless they eat a ton of berries, and of course they have these gigantic spines. I've noticed around the property some evidence of the horses that lived here before, and these hawthorn bushes definitely act like kind of a natural fence because they're so pokey. On their way to the little pasture, the horses are going to have to navigate a creek crossing. Some of the banks are very steep, and although these horses have been out in the elements, this is really not something they're used to. As we explore today, one of the things I'm going to be looking for is a pretty easy place that I can let them cross without the threat of them hurting themselves. Since technically there is already a fence on the dry lot side, I'm still debating whether or not I'm going to put a whole new fence around this little pasture. I've got a bunch of these staves left over from when I redid this fence, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to use them for anything.
Oh, bugs.
My husband sent me some pictures yesterday of the first big snow in Montana, and I am so glad that I am already down here. It's still getting around 70 to 80 degrees during the day, and then at night it's around 40 to 50, so it is the perfect weather right now. This area definitely reminds me of the place back in Montana where I did all of the quarantining of the horses. It's a nice little secluded spot. The creek gives it a really nice relaxing vibe. I came across another little creek crossing. There's some branches laid down that are definitely a makeshift bridge for a human.
Whippy. Oh, you're getting gray, buddy. Getting more gray.
I've noticed there are a lot of new subscribers to the page, and I'm hoping to do an update video on all of the horses. I'm trying really hard not to buy any more horses until I have it a little bit more cleaned up around here. After some initial investigating into what the market is like around here, I think it's pretty much the same as Montana, except there's less horses and also less competition from traders. But I do think when it is time for some new horses, this little area could be a pretty good quarantine spot. While a lot of the property has the grass pretty well eaten down, this area, it is super tall. Like most of the property, there are a lot of little saplings moving in from the tree line. This was another one that I was not 100% sure on, but it does look like it is some type of willow tree. This one also does show signs of fungal disease, which isn't a big deal. I'm probably going to be taking out a lot of these saplings to reclaim some of the pasture anyway. This pasture is really neat because it's actually between two different branches of the creek, so it is basically self-irrigating. You can see here that there are a lot of these little willow saplings sprouting up. Generally, I don't like to cut down a lot of trees, but you're going to see in a little while why I'm not going to feel bad about cutting these down. There's still going to be tons of places for the wildlife to walk through and take shelter from the sun. This area I have started to clean up just a little bit. There is an old manure pile that I turned over a few times, picked out a bunch of wood and metal and trash. I do think there's still hope to use this as fertilizer, but all of the apple trees that are around this manure pile look to be dead. It could certainly just be a coincidence, but I bet it has something to do with the stuff from the manure pile leaking into the ground. I've showed you guys a few other apple trees around the property, but it looks like this area used to be an actual orchard. I'm a little bit too late for the harvest this year. A lot of these apples already have wormholes in them, and the birds have been out here eating them. They show signs of some types of fungal disease, so I'm hoping that this project is something that I could tackle next year, and these are going to look a lot better. Since we didn't spend a whole lot of time on the property when we first looked at it, I don't think we got the whole scope of the area until we were here for an extended period of time. I have taste tested a bunch of the apple trees around here though, and this one is my absolute favorite. I'm not sure exactly what type of apples these are, but they seem to be some type of heirloom variety. They are really sweet, and I'm looking forward to having this tree back up in production next year. It's been really cool to go through and take an inventory of our apple trees. They all seem to be a little bit different, but they all have definitely been neglected over the years. It looks like I caught up with these turkeys. I think they're just strolling along eating up all of the grasshoppers and other bugs that are around. A few of you guys have asked me about chickens, and while I do like chickens, I don't know that I need any more chores to do in the morning. I'm really hoping that all of these turkeys are going to do a pretty good job at taking care of the bugs for us. I found a really cool old apple tree. This one looks like it may have been started from a seed that fell in the creek and then kind of washed down and just took root here. It sits on the edge of a dry creek bank. I think this one might be seasonal. There are a ton of these tamarisk trees along the waterways out here. These are also called salt cedars. They're considered an invasive species. I believe they were brought over here to help hold the banks of the Colorado River. They do a fabulous job at that, but they do consume a ton of water. The reason that they are called a salt cedar is because they do fix salt in the soil. It helps their seedlings take hold, and these are the kind of tree that when you cut them down, they just come back. It is not the kind of tree that you can chip or mulch and put in with your compost because they do raise the salinity of the soil. There are a bunch of patches of tamarisk trees around the property, some really big ones that are definitely a source of cover for the wildlife. So I'm going to be very picky about which ones we try to get rid of and which ones get to stay. As I was going along the creek, I saw this little shrub that I did not really know what it was. After looking this one up, it is a dogwood tree. These are very similar to the hawthorn in that they are considered non-toxic unless, of course, the animals eat a ton of berries or a bunch of the shrubs. There was a barbed wire fence on the edge of this little orchard that I did take down already. As long as there are not a ton of apples on the ground, it will be totally safe for the horses to be in here. I will have to keep an eye on them just to make sure they're not debarking the trees. A lot of these trees show signs of fungal disease. I think this is a crabapple tree, but it also might be another type of apple that just did not do well this summer. Although I am itching to get pruning these trees, I think I'm going to wait until next year because they already are showing some signs of fungal disease. I cannot believe how tall some of these apple trees are, so there is a bit of work if I want to get them back into production so I can actually harvest them. But even the ones that look like they are pretty well gone have little shoots coming out of them. After I took the little perimeter fence down, I did mow around the edge just to see where I could put a fence. This has obviously been seeded with some pasture grass. There is some alfalfa, there is timothy and orchard grass, and this ground does stay quite a bit moist even though we haven't had any rain. If I can manage this right, it should be able to grow grass year round for the horses. I'm thinking that the best plan of action at this point is to just put a fence around the perimeter of the actual pasture. There are a ton of animals that come through here, including a black bear. It looks like he has really been enjoying the acorns around here. I did see him the other day. He's probably like a medium-sized black bear. Not very brave. He ran away as soon as I saw him, so he's definitely around, but I'm not sure how often he comes through here. There were a few trees back here that I just could not figure out what they were. I, of course, have been using the internet to search and look up the leaves and the bark. This one told me that it was a quaking aspen, which I'm 99% sure it's not. There are a few aspen trees on the property, but this is definitely not one of them. It might be some kind of fruit tree that's overgrown and not producing, so I might have to wait until next year to find out what exactly it is. In addition to the black bear that's coming around, there are a ton of deer that travel through here and pick up all the apples. It is kind of nice to have the deer come through here because they can pick up all the downed apples before the horses have a chance to get them. While the horses can certainly eat the apples, if they eat a ton of them at once, they do pose quite a risk for colic and also laminitis to the sensitive horses. Here is another sign of one of the deer that comes through here. He was itching his antlers on this little sapling. With the creek on both sides of this orchard pasture, I do think that it is a pretty hot wildlife trail. To the right, we have the horses' dry lot. So you go across a little creek and then the horses are right there.
Gussie!
To the left, there is another creek that has several branches. So it's a little bit unrealistic to think that I could get the horses back there. I'm hoping if I do put the horses here during the day that maybe the deer and the bear will change their main highway. With all the wildlife around, I think it might change the type of fence that I put up. I want the deer and the bear and the turkeys to be able to get through the horse fence without any trouble.
Pears!
As I continue to get back in the woods, I'm still finding quite a few fruit trees. This is a rather small pear tree and the pears do not look very good. This one is mixed between a bunch of other saplings, including some of those hawthorn bushes that are really spiky. There are a few other trails that lead back into the woods. This is some really thick brush. It certainly would be a good place for the deer to bed down in bad weather. All of these bushes are actually growing over top of an old creek bed. It's an area that I don't plan on reclaiming because I don't think it would be very much use to the horses, and the wildlife certainly will use it. There are a bunch of saplings around that with the leaves changing color, I cannot tell what they are. Given the spikiness of this one, I think it must be another hawthorn bush. Just when I thought I had passed my last fruit tree, I stumbled upon an amazing bunch of trees. There was a giant old apple tree, and then behind it, I thought these were oak trees, but as I got closer, I discovered they were something totally different.
More pears!
I don't think it's coming up on camera exactly how tall these trees are. Even next to the really overgrown apple tree, these pear trees are gigantic. This is an area that I anticipate the horses are going to love. The trees are nice and tall so they won't get poked by any branches, and it provides a ton of shade even on this sunny day we're having. I think at one point maybe there was 1 or 2 trees out here, and then as the pears fall off of the trees, they just grow new saplings every year. I started to get a count of all of these pear trees, but after about 30, I decided that that was enough for me. These are really cool, and it'll be a great natural cover for the horses.
Oh no.
I was expecting to find a lot of old fencing on this property, and this is the first really old set of barbed wire I found. This is probably the edge of the old pasture that used to be here. There were lots more pears on the ground than the apples, so I decided to do a little taste test.
Ugh.
Even compared to the unripened apples, these things are super tart. I'm sure that has something to do with the reason why the deer overlook them and go straight for the apples. There was some evidence of animals back here running around, but it looks like none of them were eating the pears. When I get the horses back here, I'm gonna have to clear out all of this fallen fruit just so they don't get sick.
Oh no. Darn it.
In another area, I found some more fence and some chicken wire. I was really hoping that I would be able to set up a fence fairly quickly for the horses and get them out here before winter, but I'm gonna have to play it by ear and see exactly how much old fence is out here. In some spots, the grass is super thick, so there is a good possibility that it's buried under all of this old grass and I won't even be able to see it. Because there are so many parts of this property that are really overgrown, I had floated the idea to my husband that we should get a couple of pigs. I love pigs. They're really smart. They're really good at rooting around, getting up all of the old fruit, the acorns that the horses can't eat. And in the process, I'm sure they would uncover all kinds of stuff that is hidden underneath all of this overgrowth. I do think my husband is still worried that I will get crazy with the animals and start buying things that we don't need, but I really would like to have a few little pigs to add to the workforce. Another animal that eats a lot of stuff that horses cannot are donkeys. At this point, I think my husband would be more open to donkeys than pigs. I would still have to be careful about a few things in this orchard pasture with donkeys, but they would be much better at getting through all of this undergrowth. They would still need a fence to be contained, and it's a little bit easier to keep donkeys in than pigs. There was a little area on the left side of this little creek that looked like it could have been pasture. It is completely overgrown, and it looks like it is a spot that is frequented by our new bear friend. When we were looking at purchasing this house, one of the things that we were very worried about was getting insurance because of fire. There is a lot of this thick brush along one side of the house and up on the hillside behind our house. We do have a lot of neighbors, but we also are surrounded by BLM land and Forest Service land.
Those apples.
Thankfully, there's a pretty good radius around the house, so it is insured just in case anything happens. But it would make me feel better if I thinned out some of the overgrowth in these woodsy areas. It would also allow the horses to get through more easily, so I can put in a track system through the woods for them. With all of the fruit to eat, you can see that the deer have not chewed down this really tall grass. We are getting to the end of what I'm calling the orchard pasture. Just to give you guys an idea of how big this orchard pasture is going to be, I pulled it up on an aerial view and mapped it out. It is going to fall somewhere between an acre and 2 acres. With all of these saplings, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it bigger than that because we're going to be right up against the creeks. And it looks like I did just find an area that would be perfect for the horses to cross. The edge is not super steep, it's not rocky, and it looks like the deer have been crossing here as well. I have been testing out a few different types of fencing. For the areas where it's just going to be a little path going from their dry lot to a pasture, I think I'm going to use the black polymer wire that you guys have been seeing on the boys' dry lot. It has no wire in it. It's a little bit on the stretchy side. The animals should be able to slip through it while containing the horses and keeping them where they're supposed to be. With all of the trees and things, it would be really hard to keep an electric fence charged out here. My last video, I mentioned getting a wood chipper, and with all of these saplings and down trees, I think it will be a good addition to my compost protocol. Of course, I'm going to have to take into consideration the kind of trees, but I should be able to use a lot of this organic material to build up the soil on the actual pasture land that's here. It doesn't look like this area was fenced off from the previous animals, but it is so tricky to get back here with all of the saplings and the hawthorn bushes that there's a ton of grass back here that is untouched. I think that if I open it up in all the right places that it could be productive for the horses. Although it has rained a few times since I've been here, we haven't gotten any really significant amount of rainfall. I am a little bit worried after being back here and seeing all the dry creek beds that there might be some flooding in the spring or when the heavy rains come. As I was walking back into this really thick brush, I spotted the tiniest little chipmunk. He's pretty far away, if you guys can see. I can't believe I even spotted him, but I'm not sure what kind he is, but he is tiny. As I make my way back along this game trail, there's still grass, and eventually I make it to the property line. This fence is barbed wire, so it's something that I won't use for the horses. I'm not sure if I'm going to ask the neighbor about replacing the fence or if I'll just put another one on the inside of our property line. If the horses have enough to eat, they won't push on the fence line, but it'll just be safer if I have something they're used to. I do have to find a way back across the creek. This area is pretty steep and rocky, but it should be fine for me to cross. I'm glad I found a spot for the horses to cross. I've got to go see what it looks like on the other side and make sure that it lines up with my current plan. If this little orchard pasture is able to be irrigated by Mother Nature all year round, it opens up a lot of possibility for the horses to be out there grazing. As soon as I got across the creek, I noticed we had some really old fence posts, so I'm guessing this is where that line of barbed wire is laying. There could be some of it buried in all this grass, but I'm gonna have to get out here and do some more investigating just to make sure I get rid of it all. It would be easier just to put a straight fence down the edge of this pasture, but I think I might just wind a little fence along the grass portion. That'll allow the wildlife to move a lot more freely and the horses can stay contained to the actual pasture area. You guys might notice this spot from the last video. I popped out right above the old arena and round pen. There's a lot of fallen down cottonwoods out here. This kind of stuff I don't really worry about too much with the horses if there was only 2 or 3 out here, but with all of them getting turned out in the same spot, there's just too much possibility for accidents, so it is something that I'll eventually clean up. It looks like this is the other side of the creek where the crossing looks fairly mild. Found a decent bucket that I can put all kinds of odds and ends in, and this does look like it's going to be a really good place for the horses to cross. They will also have access to water that's not all the way back in their dry lot. This crossing pops up right across from where I want to put the new little triangle dry lot. It looks like I am going to be able to make a little track up here and across the creek fairly easy. When I made my way back to the dry lot, it looked like either there were more turkeys showing up or the same ones had looped around.
What are you doing, Stu?
But Stewie was chasing them out of his pen. The fence that was previously here was a welded wire that probably kept the turkeys out. There is a possibility that I'll change the fencing material on these dry lots just so the turkeys can't get in. I just don't want them getting stuck in with the horses because Stewie in particular would stomp one of these birds pretty easily. Huckleberry also loves to chase turkeys, and as much as I try to get him to stop, I'm worried that if he's unattended out here with these birds that he would just chase them for no reason. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks when they come around, they'll figure out where the new fence line is and where they can get out. It does look like they are a little bit scared of the horses, so that is a good thing.
Uh-oh.
There were a few that got a little bit frantic when I came too close, but eventually they all made it out and back into the woods. After walking around the new orchard pasture today, it seems like I have a lot of work cut out for me. I'm trying not to get overwhelmed because I have a ton of stuff to do over the next month before winter gets here. I do want to get some shelters up for the horses. I've got to lay down some grass seed, and I would like to get at least 1 or 2 pastures set up so they can do a little bit of grazing and running around. Of course, this is all an evolving plan, so if you guys want to see what happens next, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.